In October 2017, police officers stepped into a small apartment in the city of Zama, Kanagawa Prefecture. From the outside, nothing distinguished the building from the dozens of other compact residential units that lined suburban Japanese streets. It was quiet, orderly, ordinary, the kind of place where neighbors nod politely in the hallway and close their doors without asking questions. Inside, however, the air was heavy. Officers had come following a lead connected to a missing 20-year-old woman. Her disappearance had triggered something unusual. Her brother had not accepted silence. He had searched her social media accounts, traced her recent messages, and found conversations with a man who claimed he, too, wanted to die. That detail shifted the case. When police entered the apartment, they quickly understood this was not a missing person investigation. It was something far more severe. Inside refrigerators and storage containers, investigators discovered human remains. Not one victim, not two. Eventually, they would confirm 9. The room was small, a single-occupant apartment, minimal space, minimal furniture, nothing theatrical, nothing chaotic in appearance. Yet within that confined space, a systematic pattern had unfolded over 2 months. A pattern built not on brute force in public, but on digital whispers, on private messages sent to people who had publicly expressed despair. The man who lived there was Takahiro Shiraishi. Before the police found him, he had already built a method. It did not begin with violence. It began with observation. Shiraishi spent hours online searching for people who used suicide-related hashtags. Japan has long struggled with high suicide rates, and online communities exist where individuals share their loneliness, hopelessness, and desire to end their lives. For most users, these posts are cries for help or attempts to find understanding. For Shiraishi, they became a directory. He did not present himself as a predator. He did not threaten. He did not intimidate. He positioned himself as someone who felt the same darkness. His messages were careful, restrained, almost gentle. I want to die too. We can do it together. I understand how you feel. For someone in emotional crisis, those words can feel like relief. Someone sees me. Someone doesn't judge me. Someone believes my pain is real. This was the first layer of manipulation, empathy without responsibility. The disappearance that led police to his door involved a young woman who had posted about her suicidal thoughts. Her brother, uneasy about her silence, logged into her account and scrolled through her messages. Among them was a conversation with a user who suggested meeting in person to discuss a joint suicide. The tone was calm, encouraging, private. The brother did something crucial. He refused to assume it was nothing. He posed as his sister online and continued messaging the suspect. He engaged him in conversation long enough for police to identify a location. Officers used an undercover approach, confirming the account was active and connected to a real person. That real person was Shiraishi. When police arrived at the apartment, the pattern collapsed quickly. What had appeared to be isolated disappearances across the region were no longer isolated. Between August and October 2017, 9 people had entered that apartment, 8 women and 1 man. Each followed the same arc: public expression of despair, direct message from Shiraishi, private conversation building trust, agreement to meet, arrival at the apartment, no return. He told investigators that he targeted people who explicitly stated they wanted to die. He framed his actions as assisting them. In court, he would claim that he believed he was fulfilling their wishes. That explanation does not withstand scrutiny. Evidence showed that upon meeting them, he would isolate them inside his room and kill them. Authorities confirmed that he dismembered the bodies afterward to conceal them. He stored the remains in containers and coolers within the apartment. There is no need to elaborate on the physical details. The fact alone is sufficient. The apartment was not chaotic. It was organized, deliberate. The concealment was calculated. Neighbors later reported smelling something unusual, but assumed it was garbage or plumbing. In densely populated urban environments, small discomforts are often rationalized away. No one imagines a serial killer lives one wall away. The disturbing part of this case is not only what he did, it is how he found his victims. Shiraishi's background offers some insight into his tactics. Born in 1990, he experienced a relatively ordinary upbringing by external standards. His parents divorced when he was young. He later worked in the adult entertainment industry, specifically in recruiting women. This job required reading vulnerability, identifying insecurity, and exploiting it. He learned how to present himself as helpful, while steering conversations toward his own objectives. In the Zama case, he refined that skill. Online, he searched for phrases related to suicide. He did not chase random profiles. He waited for those who publicly announced their fragility. Then, he offered something dangerous: validation of their desire to die. Most suicide prevention efforts are built around interruption, crisis lines, counseling, intervention. Shiraishi reversed that logic. Instead of interrupting self-destructive ideation, he reinforced it. He normalized it. He promised companionship in it. He did not begin conversations with violence. He began with listening. Psychologically, this matters. Individuals who express suicidal thoughts often feel isolated. They may feel misunderstood or burdensome. When someone responds without judgment, especially quickly, it can feel like connection. Shiraishi understood this dynamic. He suggested meeting to discuss plans. In some cases, he promised he would help them die painlessly. In others, he implied he needed their assistance to carry out a mutual act. The phrasing varied, but the structure remained consistent: shared suffering leading to a shared end. Once inside his apartment, the illusion ended. Investigators later reconstructed the timeline. In just over 2 months, he killed 9 people. That speed reveals confidence. It also reveals the lack of coordination in missing person reports. Different municipalities, different families, no immediate connection between cases. Each disappearance looked personal, individual, unrelated. It was the brothers' insistence that disrupted the pattern. When police interrogated Shiraishi, he confessed. He did not present himself as possessed. He did not claim hallucinations. His tone, according to reports, was pragmatic. He admitted to killing them. He admitted to dismembering the bodies. He admitted to storing the remains. He explained that he targeted those who wanted to die and that he believed he was granting their wishes. That statement attempts to shift moral responsibility. It suggests collaboration. It reframes murder as assistance. But evidence showed that not all victims consented to what occurred once they entered the apartment. The court later rejected the argument that their suicidal ideation justified his actions. The apartment itself became a symbol in media coverage. Images of the building circulated widely. Commentators debated how something so extreme could happen in such an ordinary setting. Inside, the layout was simple: a single room, a small kitchen area, minimal space for movement. Investigators described how storage containers were stacked carefully. It was not a chaotic scene of rage. It was a controlled environment of concealment. That distinction matters. This was not spontaneous violence fueled by sudden emotion. It was structured, repeated, concealed, managed. Why did he continue after the first killing? Serial crimes often reveal an escalation pattern. In Shiraishi's case, the escalation was not about increasing brutality. It was about increasing efficiency. After the first successful concealment, the perceived risk decreased. Each subsequent crime reinforced the belief that he could continue undetected. The digital element created further insulation. He did not need to approach victims in public spaces or leave obvious surveillance trails. The initial contact occurred online, often anonymously. This case forced Japan to confront a difficult reality. Social media can function as both support network and hunting ground. After the arrest, Twitter faced intense scrutiny. Suicide-related hashtags were monitored more closely. Discussions emerged about whether open expressions of suicidal thoughts online provide dangerous visibility to predators. However, censorship alone does not solve vulnerability. People in crisis will continue to seek spaces to express themselves. The deeper issue lies in how easily a manipulator can infiltrate those spaces. During the trial, the central legal question was not whether he committed the acts. He admitted them. The question was whether he bore full criminal responsibility. Defense attorneys attempted to argue that the victim's suicidal intentions mitigated his culpability. They suggested he responded to existing desires rather than imposing his own. The court rejected this framing. The judges concluded that Shiraishi understood the nature of his actions. He selected victims deliberately. He planned meetings. He prepared the apartment. He concealed evidence. These behaviors indicate awareness and intent. In December 2020, he was sentenced to death. Unlike some high-profile defendants, he did not mount an extensive appeal. Reports indicated he accepted the sentence. Public reaction was complex. Many felt relief that the legal process delivered the maximum penalty. Others questioned whether execution addresses the underlying social issues revealed by the case. The 9 victims became central to public mourning. Their stories, their ages, their struggles with depression were revisited in media coverage. For families, the loss was compounded by the knowledge that their loved ones had sought help and instead found exploitation. The apartment in Zama was eventually cleared. The building remained. Life around it resumed its routine. Yet the psychological residue lingers. The most unsettling aspect of this case is not spectacle. It is subtlety. Shiraishi did not stalk parks. He did not abduct strangers from streets. He waited for messages of despair and responded with apparent kindness. The transformation from digital conversation to physical violence occurred quietly, behind closed doors. This forces an uncomfortable reflection. How do we protect vulnerable people in open digital environments without silencing them? The case also challenges assumptions about predators. He did not fit an extreme caricature. He was not visibly erratic. He maintained functional routines. Serial crime narratives often focus on dramatic escalation or forensic breakthroughs. In this case, the breakthrough was persistence from a family member and digital trace analysis. The pattern might have continued longer had that brother not intervened. It is tempting to search for a single cause: childhood trauma, social isolation, exposure to certain industries. Yet thousands experience divorce, loneliness, and unstable employment without committing violence. At some point, choice enters the equation. Shiraishi's method reveals calculated opportunism. He identified a gap: vulnerable individuals broadcasting despair in a public forum. He positioned himself as solution rather than threat. He constructed trust through words alone. In psychological terms, this is predatory empathy, the ability to mirror emotional language without sharing its meaning. He did not attempt to rescue. He did not encourage professional help. He did not suggest waiting. He accelerated. The apartment, small and unremarkable, became the endpoint of that acceleration. When we examine this case, it is essential not to romanticize the horror. The facts are sufficient. 9 people lost their lives. Their vulnerability was weaponized. Their trust was exploited. There is no grand conspiracy, no elaborate cat and mouse game between mastermind and detectives. Instead, there is a stark illustration of how digital spaces compress distance between despair and danger. After the sentencing, conversations in Japan broadened beyond criminal justice. Mental health advocacy gained renewed urgency. Suicide prevention organizations emphasize the need for intervention in online spaces. The phrase "Twitter killer" circulated widely, though it oversimplifies the case. The platform was a tool. The intent belonged to a person. In reflecting on the Zama murders, we return to the initial moment: a brother reading messages late at night, sensing something was wrong. Without that action, the pattern may have remained fragmented longer. The apartment door would have stayed closed, and the digital whispers would have continued. True crime often confronts us with extremes, but the Zama case confronts us with something quieter and perhaps more unsettling: the fragility of trust in anonymous communication. Shiraishi did not need to coerce his victims publicly. He persuaded them privately. He mirrored their language. He offered companionship in self-destruction. The tragedy is layered. 9 individuals sought connection. 9 families sought answers. 1 man saw opportunity. When police stood inside that apartment in October 2017, they were not simply processing a crime scene. They were witnessing the collision of digital despair and physical violence. The legal process has concluded. The sentence has been pronounced. Yet the broader question remains unresolved. In a world where vulnerability is increasingly visible online, who is watching, and with what intention? The story of Takahiro Shiraishi is not only about murder, it is about manipulation, about the thin line between empathy and exploitation, about how easily a message of "I understand" can conceal something far darker. It reminds us that behind every public post of despair is a human being deserving protection, not a target, and that the most dangerous predators are often those who speak softly first.